That is the absolute worst you could have done. Jonathan Peterlin, the Cleveland radio host who has covered the Browns for over a decade, didn't hold back Wednesday afternoon when Todd Monken's name was announced as the franchise's 19th full-time head coach. Not Grant Udinski, the 30-year-old offensive genius who had Browns fans dreaming of innovation. Not Nate Shalehouse, the 35-year-old Rams passing game coordinator who represents the future. Not even Jim Schwartz, the defensive coordinator who built the #1 defense in football and was passed over twice. Instead, Jimmy Haslam hired Todd Monken, a 60-year-old first-time NFL head coach who went 13-26 at Southern Mississippi over a decade ago, who spent one disastrous season in Cleveland in 2019, calling the Browns a total mess to opposing coaches, and who just got passed over by the Ravens when they hired Jesse Minter as their new head coach. And the reaction from Browns Nation wasn't just disappointment, it was fury. Pure, unfiltered, cancel-your-season-ticket fury. I don't know how he'll be as the head coach, but I can say they hired the coach who would generate the least amount of excitement and hope for the future, one fan wrote on social media. Another threatened, "If we hire Todd Monken, I'm canceling my tickets." And as Jim Schwartz reportedly walked out of the Browns facility Wednesday morning, visibly upset and telling other coaches he's not coming back, the nightmare became real. Cleveland just passed on the future to hire the past, and fans are absolutely losing their minds. Hit that subscribe button right now because this story is about to expose the most controversial coaching decision in Browns history. This isn't just about Todd Monken. This is about Grant Udinski withdrawing, young stars being rejected, Jim Schwartz walking out, and why Browns fans are calling this the absolute worst hire Jimmy Haslam could have made. Let's start with the explosion of fan rage that flooded social media within minutes of the announcement. The Browns chose Monken because he was the only candidate who agreed to keep Schwartz as defensive coordinator. This is an absolute clown show. If they wanted to keep Schwartz that bad, then make him the head coach. That tweet captured the sentiment perfectly. Cleveland spent 24 days conducting one of the most exhaustive coaching searches in recent memory, interviewing 10 candidates, flying people in from across the country, asking them to write essays and provide detailed plans. And in the end, they hired a 60-year-old offensive coordinator who's never been an NFL head coach because he was willing to keep Jim Schwartz. Except Schwartz didn't want to stay, and now the Browns have neither the young offensive genius they needed, nor the defensive coordinator who made them elite. They have Todd Monken, a compromise nobody wanted. The irony is suffocating. Todd Monken was the Browns' offensive coordinator in 2019 under Freddie Kitchens. That season was a disaster. The Browns went 6-10 despite having Baker Mayfield, Nick Chubb, Odell Beckham Jr., and Jarvis Landry. The offense underperformed. Kitchens was calling the plays, not Monken, which created confusion. And according to reports from that season, Monken was so frustrated with the dysfunction that he told opposing coaches the Browns were a total mess. He trashed his own team. And now, 7 years later, he's back as the head coach. 2019 Browns OC Todd Monken reportedly calls the team a total mess prior to games. 2026, Todd Monken is named the HC of the Browns, one fan tweeted, perfectly encapsulating the absurdity.
But the real outrage centers on who Cleveland didn't hire. Grant Udinski was the dream candidate for many Browns fans. At 30 years old, he represents everything the NFL is trending toward. Young, innovative, quarterback-focused. He turned Sam Darnold from a bust into a Pro Bowl-caliber starter in Minnesota. He's working with Trevor Lawrence in Jacksonville and helped him have a career year before injuries derailed the season. He interviewed twice with Cleveland, reportedly nailed both interviews, and was considered a finalist. And then Monday, he withdrew, just pulled out completely, decided to stay in Jacksonville as offensive coordinator rather than become Cleveland's head coach. Think about that. A 30-year-old coordinator with zero head coaching experience looked at the Browns job and said, "No thanks, I'd rather stay where I am." That's humiliating. That's a referendum on how toxic this organization has become, and fans know it. Nate Scheelhaase, the 35-year-old Rams passing game coordinator, was another exciting option. He's part of Sean McVay's offensive tree. He's worked with Matthew Stafford and Cooper Kupp. He represents modern offensive football. And he interviewed with Cleveland, got to the final round, and then decided to stay in Los Angeles. He'd rather be a passing game coordinator for the Rams than the head coach of the Browns. Again, the optics are brutal. Young, talented coaches are running away from Cleveland, and instead of pivoting to someone like Jim Schwartz, who at least built an elite defense and wanted the job, the Browns hired Todd Monken, a guy who turned 60 on February 5th, who has never been an NFL head coach, whose only head coaching experience was going 13-26 at Southern Miss from 2013 to 2015. This isn't the future. This is desperation. And the Jim Schwartz situation makes it even worse. According to Tom Pelissero of NFL Network, after the Browns informed Schwartz they were hiring Monken, Schwartz was visibly upset, said goodbyes in the building, and told other coaches he's not coming back. He walked out, just like that. The defensive coordinator who has been the architect of Cleveland's elite defense for 3 years, who turned Myles Garrett into the NFL's single-season sack record holder with 23, who coached Carson Schwesinger into the favorite for Defensive Rookie of the Year, looked at this decision and said, "I'm done," and fans are devastated. Jim Schwartz is the key in salvaging some PR in the hiring of Todd Monken. If Schwartz leaves, good luck. Tony Grossi, the longtime Browns beat writer, tweeted. That's not an exaggeration. Schwartz leaving doesn't just hurt the defense, it exposes the entire organizational dysfunction. The Browns prioritized keeping Schwartz so much that they hired a head coach willing to work with him, and Schwartz left anyway. That's not just bad, that's humiliating. The fan reaction on Twitter was savage. "I wanted a young offensive coach. With Lamar Jackson, he wasn't able to make it work," one fan wrote, referencing Monken's time in Baltimore, where the Ravens ranked 11th in scoring despite having a 2-time MVP quarterback. That's a fair criticism. Monken had Lamar Jackson, one of the most talented quarterbacks in football, and the Ravens' offense was good but not great. They ranked second in rushing but only 11th in points per game. Compare that to Greg Roman, Lamar's previous offensive coordinator, who had the Ravens scoring over 30 points per game in 2019 and 2020. Monken's offense was run-heavy and conservative, and now he's supposed to come to Cleveland, where the quarterback situation is a complete disaster, and somehow be better? Fans aren't buying it.
Another fan pointed out the Browns really just dictated an entire 24-day coaching search solely on their 60-year-old defensive coordinator. That's exactly what happened. Everything revolved around keeping Jim Schwartz happy. And in the end, Schwartz left anyway. So Cleveland compromised on their head coaching hire for nothing. They passed on young offensive minds like Udinski and Schellhaus, they passed on defensive stability with Schwartz, and they hired a 60-year-old offensive coordinator with no NFL head coaching experience who called them a total mess 6 years ago. The logic doesn't add up, and fans know it. But the Browns tried to spin it positively. Jimmy and Dee Haslam released a statement praising Monken's highly intelligent, experienced, innovative offensive mindset and calling him an outstanding leader with a clear vision. But those are just words, the same words they used when they hired Freddie Kitchens in 2019, the same words they used when they traded for Deshaun Watson and gave him $230 million fully guaranteed. Words mean nothing in Cleveland. Results do. And Monken's results are mixed at best. His only NFL head coaching job? Never had one. His only college head coaching job? 13-26 at Southern Miss. His time in Cleveland as offensive coordinator? 6-10 under Freddie Kitchens. His time in Baltimore? Good, but not great offense with a generational quarterback talent. None of that inspires confidence, and the age issue is real. Todd Monken turns 60 on February 5, 2026. That makes him one of the oldest first-time NFL head coaches in history. The NFL is trending younger. The Chicago Bears hired 38-year-old Ben Johnson. The Raiders hired 39-year-old Pete Carroll. The Falcons hired 44-year-old Kevin Stefanski. And the Browns hired a 60-year-old who's never done this before. How long is this window?
If Monken struggles in year 1, which is almost guaranteed given the roster, does he get 4 or 5 years to turn it around? Or does Jimmy Haslam, who has fired 6 head coaches in 13 years, panic after one bad season and start over again? The track record suggests the latter, and that means Monken might be a lame duck coach before he ever coaches a game. The quarterback situation is the biggest challenge. Cleveland has Deshaun Watson, who didn't play in 2025 while rehabbing a torn Achilles, Dylan Gabriel, who started 6 games as a rookie and showed flashes, and Shedeur Sanders, who started 7 games and posted the worst EPA per dropback of any quarterback since 2000, according to Jason Lloyd. None of them are proven, none of them inspire confidence, and Monken has to figure out which one can run his offense, or whether Cleveland uses the 6th overall pick to draft Fernando Mendoza or Dante Moore. That's not an easy task. That's a nightmare, and fans are skeptical that a 60-year-old first-time head coach can navigate it.
The coaching search itself was chaotic. Cleveland interviewed 10 candidates: Mike McDaniel, Jesse Minter, Grant Udinski, Nate Scheelhaus, Jim Schwartz, Todd Monken, Tommy Rees, Aiden Durde, Dan Pitcher, and Anthony Lynn. 4 made it to second interviews: Monken, Schwartz, Udinski, and Scheelhaus. And then they started dropping out. Udinski withdrew Monday. Scheelhaus decided to stay with the Rams. McDaniel withdrew to become the Chargers' offensive coordinator. Minter canceled his second interview and became the Ravens' head coach. By the end, Cleveland had 2 options: Monken or Schwartz, and they chose Monken, not because he was the best, but because he was the last man standing who agreed to keep Schwartz as defensive coordinator, except Schwartz left anyway, so the entire premise of the hire collapsed immediately. Albert Breer of Sports Illustrated reported that Monken made an impression with Browns ownership back in 2019. Translation: Jimmy Haslam liked him personally. This wasn't about finding the best coach. This was about Haslam hiring someone he's comfortable with. And that's the problem. Haslam's comfort level has led to Rob Chudinski, Mike Petney, Hugh Jackson, Freddie Kitchens, and Kevin Stefanski all getting fired. 7 head coaches in 13 years, a 73-139-1 record, second worst in the NFL during that span. And now Todd Monken is number 7, and fans have zero faith he'll be any different. The reaction from national media was mixed. ESPN's Jeremy Fowler reported that Monken offered a clear offensive plan and that ultimately won out. But what offensive plan? Fans don't know. The Browns didn't share it. And given Monken's track record of being conservative and run-heavy, it's hard to imagine it's anything revolutionary. Marcus Spears, Chris Mad Dog Russo, and Stephen A. Smith discussed the hire on ESPN, and the consensus was skepticism. Russo questioned whether 60 is too old for a first-time head coach. Spears wondered if Monken can develop a quarterback when he's never had to as a head coach. And Smith pointed out that Cleveland destroys every coach who walks through that door, and Monken will be no different unless something changes. They're not wrong. But here's the twist. Monken might actually work. Not because he's perfect, but because he's experienced, adaptable, and knows how to maximize limited talent. He worked with Jameis Winston in Tampa Bay and helped develop an offense that eventually won a Super Bowl under Bruce Arians. He worked at Georgia and won back-to-back national championships. He worked with Lamar Jackson and built one of the best rushing offenses in NFL history. And he knows Cleveland because he was there in 2019. He saw the dysfunction. He lived it, and maybe, just maybe, he can fix it. But that's a massive maybe, and fans aren't feeling optimistic.
The contract situation complicates everything. Jim Schwartz is under contract through 2026. That means the Browns technically have leverage. They can refuse to let him interview elsewhere. They can force him to stay. But if they do, what kind of relationship will Schwartz have with Todd Monken? How motivated will he be to help Monken succeed when the Browns just passed him over for the second time? And how will the players react, knowing their defensive coordinator wanted out but was forced to stay? That's toxic. That's the kind of dysfunction that destroys locker rooms and ruins seasons. Jordan Schultz's source made it clear. If it has to get ugly, Schwartz is someone who will be perfectly fine making it ugly. That's a threat. That's Schwartz through his representatives telling the Browns, "Don't try to block me. Don't force this, because I will burn this building down on my way out. I'll go public with everything. I'll explain exactly why I'm leaving. I'll expose the dysfunction." And the Browns, who are already a national punchline, cannot afford that kind of public humiliation. The Monken hire itself is controversial enough. He's 60 years old. He's never been an NFL head coach. His only head coaching experience was going 13-26 at Southern Miss, and he called the Browns a total mess in 2019 when he was their offensive coordinator under Freddie Kitchens. Fans are already skeptical. National media is questioning whether this is the right hire. And now, on day one, Todd Monken is dealing with his defensive coordinator walking out. That's not a smooth transition. That's a crisis, and Monken hasn't even coached a game yet. The quarterback situation adds another layer of complexity. Cleveland has Deshaun Watson, who didn't play in 2025, Dylan Gabriel, who started 6 games as a rookie, and Shedeur Sanders, who started 7 games and posted historically bad metrics. Monken was hired to fix the offense, but if he's also dealing with a defensive coordinator vacancy, a potential Myles Garrett trade request, and locker room instability because Jim Schwartz left, how is he supposed to focus on developing quarterbacks? The job just got infinitely harder.
And here's the ultimate irony. The Browns hired Todd Monken over Jim Schwartz because they wanted an offensive-minded head coach to fix the worst offense in football. But in doing so, they might have destroyed the best defense in football. That's not a trade-off. That's organizational suicide. Because you can't win in the NFL with a bad offense and a bad defense. And if Jim Schwartz leaves, if Myles Garrett requests a trade, if Carson, Schwesinger, and Denzel Ward regress under a new coordinator, Cleveland goes from a 5-12 team with an elite defense to a 3-14 team with nothing, and Jimmy Haslam will be searching for head coach number 9 in 3 years. Jim Schwartz walking out is the story, not Todd Monken being hired, not the quarterback situation, not the draft. Jim Schwartz, the architect of Cleveland's elite defense, the man who was passed over twice for head coach, looked the Browns in the eye and said, "I'm done," and he left. That's not just a resignation, that's a referendum on the entire organization, and Cleveland is in shock because they know what it means. They just lost the best thing they had, and they might never get it back. This story is based on reports from NFL Network, Yahoo Sports, Sports Illustrated, Bleacher Report, Cleveland 19 News, and various outlets covering Jim Schwartz's departure and the fallout from Todd Monken's hire.